I've always been a thirsty. Well, hello, my beautiful reader friends, and welcome back, or welcome for the first time. If you are new here, my name is Lori Beth, and today I have a very fun video to do with you guys. It is a topic of conversation that I think is important from time to time, and that is hyped up books. But not just hyped up books that are not worth the hype. In my humble opinion, of course, because as we have talked about time and time again, reading is just very subjective. So, disclaimer, everything that we are going to talk about in this video today is very clearly my opinion and my opinion alone. Although, maybe some of you will share my opinion on some of these books, or maybe you'll be like, she is a crazy person, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Either one is very feasible for the outcome of this video, but I thought that this would be really fun to do because I think, again, when I say it's important to talk about this stuff, I mean it's important to remember that stuff, that reading is subjective. So I grabbed a couple of books off of my bookshelves that I have personally read that I found to be very overhyped because of either the Bookstagram, Booktube, BookTok world, and I honestly didn't really like. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and jump right in. So I've got my stack over here, and I thought a good way to do this was to kind of like ease into it a little bit. I didn't want to like hit the ground running too hard, but I do have, in my opinion, some heavy hitters in this stack of books. But we are going to start with Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Now, this book, did I hate it? No. Did I think it was worth the hype that it received online? Also no. If you do not know anything about this book, it is described as a cozy fantasy novel, and we follow our main character, Viv, who is an orc. She's spent her whole life doing all of the orcish things, like being kind of like a warrior, battling people, always just like living her life with a sword in her hands, and she is done with that lifestyle. She has discovered coffee, which where she comes from is a thing that like doesn't exist, and she fell in love with it, and now she wants to retire from being like this warrior orc and open a coffee shop of her own. The premise, chef's kiss. The story itself, it was so cozy, so laid back, so low stakes that I kind of just had zero interest in it. So in the story, we follow our main character, Viv, who is opening her very own coffee shop and leaving behind the world she has always known. However, as we go through the story and we are introduced to a few other characters that she starts to develop a relationship with, something comes about and she kind of stumbles into this like one final fight, one final battle of will, and one final piece of that old world that she came from. I personally think the story would have been better if we followed Viv just kind of successfully opening this coffee shop and developing a very solid, loving relationship with some of these people that she is introduced to and that we are introduced to as the reader. And this whole idea of her having to kind of step back into this old world and do this one last job, just kind of like, I didn't like it. Like the whole point of this book was that she wasn't doing that anymore. Also, I just felt like it was kind of overhyped in the sense where it was like, oh my God, you're going to love this. You're going to love these characters. I don't know. It was not bad. It just wasn't great. And I never felt truly invested in anybody in this book. So this one kind of fell flat for me. I personally just felt like this book was way, way, way too overhyped. And next up on my list of overhyped books is Circe by Madeline Miller. So overhyped, in fact, that I actually DNF'd this book, and woo, man, I have gotten hate for this online. So many people talk about this book and how epic it is and how amazing it is and submersive and just like a beautiful, perfect retelling of a character like Circe, which I don't necessarily disagree with. For me, it was just the writing style of this book, and I could not fall into it whatsoever. So because this is a retelling and a retelling of Greek mythology, it very much plays out that way to the point where the writing style itself felt a little bit stream of consciousness, and because of that, almost disjointed. So I felt like I had a very hard time following what was happening with Circe and the path that she was being led through. it all felt a little bit, again, disjointed, broken up. I couldn't flow with the story. I just personally didn't like this because of the writing style. The subject matter itself, I think I would have a much better understanding of or interest in if it didn't make me feel like I was almost reading something that was like I wasn't smart enough to read. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever read a book like that where you just don't feel like you should be reading it? Like, you're just not grasping it. You're not smart enough for this book. I don't really believe that's a thing, but this writing style very specifically, I did not jive with, and I ended up DNFing the book, and as I said, I got some hate for that. Okay, next from my list of overhyped books is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, let me give a disclaimer. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love her. I actually think she's a phenomenal writer. If you want just like a very good fiction book, Taylor Jenkins Reid is really a good call. Like, you can't go wrong with most of her stories. I think that they are very gripping and very easy to fall into. You feel very invested in them, usually from the get-go. This was a totally different experience for me, and one that I was not expecting because I am such a big fan of hers. The main reason I didn't love this book was specifically because of our main character, Evelyn Hugo. If you do not know, this book is about a very reclusive Hollywood starlet named Evelyn Hugo, who is very, very popular, but very withdrawn at this point in time, and kind of stays out of the spotlight, even though she had spent most of her career being like a very popular, very in the spotlight person. So over her career, countless media outlets and journalists have always tried to interview Evelyn, and she has always kind of pushed them aside. Her life has been kind of, again, in the spotlight and kind of scandalous, and she never really wanted to tell her life story. And then she decides to reach out to this kind of unknown journalist and sit down with her and finally discuss and go over all of her life experiences and all the scandals behind all of those experiences. This premise to me just sounded so appealing. I was like, I could definitely fall into this. I love this idea of like this beautiful Hollywood starlet finally confessing to this woman all of her life secrets and all of the things that really went on behind the scenes. What ended up happening with that is discovering that Evelyn is actually kind of a person. Even though she has been doing this to protect herself because of some like personal identities, in the end, she kind of just ends up, again, sounding like this really person. Like, all of the things she does to the people that she crosses paths with or develops relationships with kind of ends up leaving everybody hurt and her protected and fine until the end of the story, where she kind of like lays everything out as to why she did what she did. I think it was kind of like a glorified character, like, oh, she was just trying to protect and hide certain things in her life because of the times that she grew up in or was like popular in. But really what it ended up seeming like to me is, again, she was kind of a terrible person, and I did not really appreciate her as a main character. So I personally felt like this book was so overhyped that it maybe it set the bar really high for me. And it just really was kind of a big letdown, like a major disappointment. And that kind of sucks because I really love Taylor Jenkins Reid. Okay, so we are almost there. We've made it mostly through the pile, but I wanted to get to what I would like to claim as the heavy hitters in this video, with the next one being Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. Another one that was so hyped up on the internet, hyped up to the point where it was like, it felt like Christmas when this book was coming out. Like, did you pre-order it? Did you pre-order it? Because if you didn't, you will not get your hands on it. You will not be able to read this book, and you will be missing out on all of the experience that the internet is going to have.
You're going to be like a big fat loser.
First of all, I didn't pre-order it. Second of all, my husband was like, hey, I saw that book that everybody's talking about at the store. Do you want me to grab it? I didn't even pre-order it, and my husband was able to pick it up that same day and bring it home to me. But with that being said, I actually loved Fourth Wing. I loved it so much that I was very excited for Iron Flame to come out. I thought, this is it. when I read Fourth Wing, this is it. This is the new series that I have been waiting for. I am definitely that self-proclaimed ACOTAR girly. I love Sarah J. Maas. I love most of the very popular romantasy series, and I was here for the Fourth Wing fever. Started reading Iron Flame, and I was like, I kept waiting for something to happen. When is something going to happen in this book? This is not a small book. And I don't even think I left a bookmark in here. I want to say I got 50 to 60% of the way through, and I was like, I can't anymore. This went from a story that I absolutely loved, of a main character that I absolutely loved, for a romance that was like burning and on fire, and an ending of the first book that I couldn't wait to see what happened in, to literally nothing happening for like 400 pages. And if I'm being honest, I don't even know how this book ends because I never went back to it. It was a DNF for me, and I think that this was so overhyped. I have heard rumors that this was kind of pushed out way sooner than it should have been, almost like this thing that we hear happening with authors, especially in the fantasy realm. Books need to be bigger, books need to be longer, stories need to be more epic, and they need to be out right now. And I think that's what happened with this situation. Unfortunately, I never went back to it. It just couldn't keep my attention. I don't know, maybe before the third one comes out, maybe I'll try the audio. That could help. But I really just didn't love this. I thought it was way overhyped and a very big letdown compared to what I read in book one. All right. Hang in there with me. And heavy hitter number 2, the one that I am saving for last, best for last, worst for last. I'll let you decide how you would like to think about it. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Oh. All right. Where do we even begin with this book? First of all, I would love to show you my lovely edition that was decorated personally by my dog when he was a baby. So there's that. So, first and foremost, I have not seen the movie. Secondly, I can't attest to what is going on with the media surrounding this movie as far as what the movie represents and what maybe some of the actors or actresses in the movie are representing at this point in time. I try not to talk too much about things that I don't know about. That's how we get ourselves in trouble. But what I can say is I did read this book, and I found it to be kind of problematic when I read it. And also, it's a Colleen Hoover book. I don't want to diss her too much because I did actually really enjoy Verity. That to me was like a wild card in the list of books that I've read by her, but this just simply wasn't it. The story itself, if you don't know, follows a young girl who kind of grows up in a very volatile, toxic family situation and has an abusive father. She ends up falling in love with this neighbor boy who is kind of like semi-homeless when they are teenagers. And they just develop this very special, like very close bond. And then life goes on. Everybody moves on. She finds herself as an adult woman falling in love with the man of her dreams, who just so happens to be another volatile, toxic man. This book to me, was it 100% awful? No. I think that it kind of skirted over and made light of being in a domestic abuse situation, almost glorifying it to the point of it made it seem very easy. That's what I took away from the book. We have a character who finds herself in a situation again, most likely because she grew up in that situation, and then we find the character leaving that situation. It seemed very fast. Very quick. I don't think it was awful as far as representation. I just think that it might have, again, kind of romanticized or glorified what it can be like to get out of those situations. And beyond that, I don't mean to diss Colleen Hoover too much, but her writing is really just fluff. Like, there's not much there. Like, it's not that deep. If you have read a lot of her books, you know what I'm talking about. They're very surface level, very tropey, very predictable, which sometimes we like that in a story, and I can appreciate that too. But I found this book to be way overhyped when it was just the book, and I'm finding it even more overhyped now that there is a movie out there kind of bringing attention back around. Again, all the drama that is surrounding the movie, I don't know too much about and I'm not going to speak on, but as far as this book goes and as far as the story itself goes, I think it was really kind of lacking and missing some important touches on such a heavy topic, if I'm being honest. Well, there you have it, my friends. That is a stack of books that I think have been way overhyped on the internet. And again, these are all just personal opinions. With that being said, I would love to know if you have read any of the books that we talked about in today's video. What were your thoughts and opinions on those books? Did you like them? Did you think they were well hyped or overhyped? I'd love to know what side of the fence you fall on, or let me know a book that you think was way overhyped on the internet and definitely not worth it to read. Drop that in a comment below. As always, if you liked this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button because it always helps a girl out. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any of my other upcoming videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button too. As always, it has been an absolute blast, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one.